Hi everyone, I'm Gina Minardi and I'm a licensed therapist who got fed up with therapy. This is a one-woman show about my journey of finding the spaces between non-traditional approaches of healing. What I learned is that there's no one right way to heal, and you truly are your best resource. Therapists and healers are meant to support you on your path, but they don't have all of the answers. You do. This show is about the spaces between laughter, tears, thoughts, ego, soul, messy growth, and moments of joy. It's about personal liberation, inner knowing, and the tools that get you there. I will cover topics that make many of us uncomfortable and interviewing people who are willing to go there. I've spent thousands of hours listening to human beings navigate their life story, from rehabs in Malibu to homeless shelters in East LA, and now my private practice. It has been some of the most profound, painful, and beautiful moments in my life. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for joining me on my very first podcast episode. It really means a lot. So, to be honest with all of you, I have deliberated about having my first episode be on the topic of perfectionism. It almost felt trivial in a time when we are dismantling systemic racism, learning how to live in a pandemic, and the earth is on fire. But if there is anything that I have learned about 2020 through my own experience, clients, and friends, is that we are all facing our shit big time. I have learned a lot about myself in these last 7 months. It has been both brutal and beautiful as I do deep dive work into this hardwired wounding and programming that exists within me. I have learned that I really struggle with control, letting go, and high expectations of myself and others. I realized the critical perfectionist that existed in my mother was passed on to me. I've been thinking about how many of us struggle with trying to maintain a sense of perfection or control in our lives and relationships, often showing up as inauthentic versions of ourselves, hoping to be liked, validated, which ultimately means we want to receive love, and this is often rooted in feelings of unworthiness or not feeling good enough. This way of showing up in the world is rooted in our subconscious mind from painful and traumatic memories from the past, developed in childhood and adolescence. What is absolutely wild about the subconscious mind is that it controls every physical move, whether voluntary or involuntary. Neuroscience has shown that most of our decisions, actions, emotions, and behavior depend on 95% of brain activity that lies beyond present conscious awareness, comes from your programming from the past. Just marinate on that for a second. So many of you might be thinking, or maybe not, well, I don't try to be perfect all of the time, Gina. But let me ask you a few questions that you can simmer on. Remember that perfectionism can land on a spectrum. Do you worry about how you are perceived by others? How smart or successful you are? How athletic you are? What you look like? How much you weigh? Do you like to overachieve and have tendencies towards being a workaholic or love the feeling of being hyperproductive? Do you have high expectations of yourself and others? Are you defensive when receiving feedback? Do you fear taking risks for fear of failure? Friedman Schaub says, the demands of modern society have trained us to constantly comply, compete, and compare ourselves with others, and consequently derive our worthiness mainly through external perspectives, judgments, and validations. Life is no longer considered a journey. It has become a competition, a race with no apparent reward or finish line to reach. If you have watched Michael Jordan's The Last Dance, you saw the many faces of perfectionism. His unwavering dedication, grueling physical practices, and commitment to being the absolute best and bringing the Bulls to multiple championships, really at whatever cost. We find out in this series that he just wanted the approval, love, and validation of his father. Do we see the wounding there? He was one of the greatest American basketball players and hailed as an icon, but also despised by many for his cutthroat approaches. I bring this up not to pick on Michael Jordan, but to bring up the idea of softening to perfectionism. Can we still work towards greatness as human beings without killing ourselves with subtle or not so subtle criticisms of self, fear of being a failure if we don't succeed and become number one, with a sense of fierce egoic competition with one another? I guess it depends on your definition of greatness. Society definitely rewards the top dog, but does it reward values like compassion, kindness, empathy, and integrity? Of course, I believe in healthy competition, but at what cost to ourselves as individuals and to the collective whole? Look at Instagram. We have let corporations define the success and status of someone through how many likes they get and how many followers an individual has. This is not based on a value system of integrity, ethics, kindness, or authenticity. But someone is deemed, quote unquote, worthy with an official blue check next to their name. Do we see how fucked up this is? And how things in our society set up our blueprint for feelings of unworthiness? Unless you can just gently say, fuck that, and redefine for yourself your own value system, this can be challenging at times. I digress. Instagram is an easy target. Now I'll jump into my own journey of softening towards my hard edges of perfectionism and where it came from. I didn't realize how badly perfectionism plagued me until a few years ago, and also with starting this podcast. I'll start with the podcast first. This is a hilarious moment to me. I had hired a coach who was also very expensive, and she said to me, I think this was like 2 or 3 sessions later, Gina, just open the damn box and plug in the microphone. Just start talking into it. You have a lot of wisdom and the world will benefit from it. 2 things happened to me. I questioned the fact that I had spent a shit ton of money for something that I sort of knew I could do, which was plug in the microphone. But I also started crying with the sentiment that people would benefit from my words. Would they really? But there are so many other podcasts in the world that are amazing. Brené Brown and Michelle Obama, they have reasons to speak. What do I really have to offer? Will people just criticize me and the contents that come out of my mouth, which is both a filter for my soul and my ego? That would be too painful for me, so I just let the damn box sit and collect some more dust. Rewind to my feelings of not good enoughness. My mother was a fierce woman, incredibly beautiful, intelligent, and had the vernacular of Noam Chomsky. But she never believed in herself, and therefore she could really never fully see me or believe in me. Growing up, I watched my mom attack her natural beauty, her weight, aging process, and the brilliance that came out of her mouth. As a kid, it was befuddling for me to witness. I just didn't get it. She was the queen and centerpiece of my world. Then my mom was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma when I was 17. I watched her battle the loss of her hair, attempting to eat, but her mouth tasted like metal, so she would make jokes when the chemotherapy made her painfully thin. She grappled with truly loving herself while even facing her mortality. Her death devastated me. I loved her so much. It truly shattered my world, and a piece of me left the building. I deal with this grief on a daily basis. But there was a fire inside of me that said I had to go to college and I had to do good in the world for her, until I later realized it was for me. Fast forward, I ended up getting my master's in marriage and family therapy, and I still didn't believe in my intellect or that I had accomplished anything. Because everything at that point in my life was based in my wounded ego and needing external validation from everyone, except from me. I had developed a rage and a critical edge inside of me that manifested into volatile relationships with men, and my lack of believing in my own worthiness projected all over my partners. I questioned them and their being good enough for me constantly. The dance was exhausting. Now into the softening. I have been in partnership for the last 9 years with the most amazing soul, and I almost blew it up 2 years ago. I knew that I had to get to the root of all of this internal pain and deep desire to control everything in my life so that I wouldn't feel my own internal chaos. I saw a really wise medical intuitive who said that my mother's lack of love for herself and questioning leaving my father while I was in the womb left me questioning all of my partners, not trusting myself or others, and not being able to truly see or love myself. Everything began to change from this session forward. I realized the intergenerational trauma that had impacted most women collectively, that was not just personal to me, not feeling good enough, smart enough, or worthy to speak up. But if we keep our waistlines tight, tits perky, and faces ageless, then somehow we will be relevant and worthy in society. And that message was passed on from my mother's mother and her mother. Thank you to a patriarchal society for making women feel so valued. So I've been on a committed mission to learn to love myself, softening my perfectionist edges and helping other humans learn to love themselves, challenging negative belief systems passed on from family systems, society, and even past lives, if you can get down with that. So what has helped me that might help you? These are in no particular order, and it's long. So you may want to grab a notebook if a few of these resonate with you. The number one rule that I tell all of my clients is that this is a daily practice. Basically, everything is a daily practice. You don't just wake up one day and scream to the mountaintops, "I'm incredible! I'll never feel insecure again. I love all of my body parts. I'll never fall into the traps of modern society that sell me all of the products and ideas of how to love myself." But you will feel days and moments where you will feel such a deep connection to yourself. It's like tapping into the infinite well of love, which can happen when you commit to a daily practice of loving yourself. Number 2, this is a big one. Daily meditation and prayer. I am not a religious person, but I am deeply spiritual. I believe in connecting with the space in between my thoughts, which I believe is the glitter gold essence of who we are, our soul, which is connected to infinite loving awareness. It helps me dismantle my ego on a daily basis and not listen to a lot of the bullshit it spews. Prayer helps me surrender to God, the universe, spirit, whatever you'd like to call it. My client who is an atheist calls it the ness. Surrender is a beautiful place for those who love to control life when life is mostly out of our control. Number 3, putting myself and my voice out into the world. And I'm saying this also to you directly. This was a terrifying decision to record this first episode. It stretched my comfort zone, vulnerability, and it's me taking risks. But ultimately, this makes us all feel more alive and connected to our life force energy. Number 4, reminding myself that life is not black and white. Some days I will feel on fire, creative, and that I'm ready to share. Other days I will pull back a bit and I'll listen to that, knowing when to stretch myself and pause. Number 5, embracing that I'm 39 years old, my body is changing, and I'm aging. I have lines on my face, sunspots on my body from too much sun, and I wish my ass looked like it did when I carried a fake ID into bars. Practicing non-attachment and acceptance to these physical changes taking place is challenging but necessary. We live in a culture that bombards us with images of ageless faces, the next new procedure, cleanse, or clean eating, which is often a disguise for dietary restriction connected to weight loss. For myself personally, these feel like acts of self-abandonment, not self-love. And if I do get caught up in it, I feel like shit. Number 6, work with all parts of yourself. The part of you that procrastinates, the part of you that gets angry or tries to people please. All of our parts have their own motivations and fears. Look at what procrastination will say to you. Let's not do it. Let's avoid this because I want to keep you from failing and feeling bad. Go inside of yourself and feel a part in your body and listen for its responses. It will tell you what it is trying to do for you or what pain it is trying to protect you from. This is from Internal Family Systems if you want to look deeper into it. Number 7, ask yourself these questions. What do I know about myself that I can believe in, that I can appreciate? How many times have I proved to myself that I can overcome obstacles and accomplish what I have intended to? What were the innate qualities and strengths that allowed me to reach my goals? Number 8, remember what Tara Brach says. Once we recognize our suffering from the trance of unworthiness, the first step towards healing is learning to pause. The second step towards healing is deepen attention. It's important to ask, beneath all of these negative thoughts, what's going on in my body, in my heart, right now? If being with yourself in that way is uncomfortable, imagine bringing someone who is truly wise and compassionate helping you. This can serve as a bridge to bringing healing presence to yourself. Number 9, I love this one. Burning contracts. And I borrowed this from Carla McLaurin. Here is an example. If your mother was extremely obsessed with weight or looks and you picked up the same self-shaming behavior, in a way, you holding on to that shame is a misguided way of honoring your mother. I carry this for you, Mom. So I actually like to physically burn things in my backyard. I'm not suggesting that all of you do this, but it is extremely cathartic. And if you can do it in a safe way, do it. Number 10, inner child work. When I noticed I'm triggered and it feels really, really old, I ask myself, what does little Gina need? For years, I balked at my therapist when she would bring this up. I couldn't access little Gina, nor did I want to, and it sounded actually pretty ridiculous to me. Wrong. Inner child work is incredibly healing. So now I'm going to walk you through an exercise of this before I wrap up this episode, and I share a little bonus piece at the end. So imagine something that has recently triggered you or upset a very old, wounded part of yourself. Usually you can tell when something is old when you cannot get over it. You keep ruminating and thinking about it. Okay, so when you feel into this, it also feels overwhelming to your nervous system is another general clue in. So I now want you to imagine your younger self who identifies this same feeling or trigger. Ask him or her, what do they need? Do you need to say something to them? Do you need a hug or to be listened to? Bring in your current adult self. Give that little you anything that they need. Let them have a tantrum. Let them sob. Hold them while they feel anxious. Maybe saying, I am here for you. I love you and you are worthy. You are allowed to feel all of these messy feelings. Thank you so much for listening, and I really, really do hope that this helps you on your journey. And for those of you who are still with me, and I want to read something that I think is so, so profound. Okay, here I go. So this is called Held, Not Healed. The Joy of Beginning Again with Jeff Foster. Falling in love with where you are. Sometimes you just feel like a beginner, like you're back at square one. Yesterday, you were so clear, so light, so joyous, so at peace, so enlightened, and so totally accepting of yourself and everyone around you. You were manifesting perfectly, or so you thought, and your vibrations were high. You felt so free, so close to where you wanted to be, dancing and singing down the yellow brick road of enlightenment. But now, all your evolution seems to have gone down the drain. You feel like a novice again, as if you've made no progress at all over the past few years or even decades, because unexpectedly, a wave of sadness or doubt or anger or fear or longing for something you cannot even name has arisen. Something in your external life circumstances, at work, at home, at play, in relationship, in meditation, at the grocery store, triggered an old pain in you, a fierce doubt, an echo from childhood, a fear, a deep despair, a sense of abandonment, a loneliness, an uncomfortable energy you thought that you had freed yourself from has returned. This is accompanied by tightness in the chest, a contracted feeling in the gut, a tension in the throat. Yesterday's clarity, yesterday's joy, yesterday's bliss, yesterday's self-acceptance seems so far away now. You feel like a baby again. Is this a mistake? A punishment? I probably have done something wrong, you tell yourself. Bad me, guilty, guilty, wrong, wrong, stupid, stupid. You start scrambling for solutions, answers, fixes, looking for some authority on this kind of thing, some sort of spiritual teaching. It's amazing how quickly we blame ourselves, isn't it? How quickly we turn from the present moment, making it into a monster to be defeated or escaped, rather than a friend to be embraced, trusted, even loved. How quickly we assume that we have been kicked off our heroic path and that the moment contains no intelligence at all. No matter how evolved, awakened, or full of expertise we think we are, sometimes, if we're honest, we still find ourselves trying not to have the experience we're actually having, racing towards a different moment, a better moment, a more spiritual moment. This thought, this feeling, this urge, this impulse, this ache, this fear, this anger, this doubt, this tension shouldn't be here. This is the voice behind all of our suffering. It is an old voice, a voice of fear, a voice of distrust of our own deepest experience. It didn't come naturally to us as children. We had to be taught to fear parts of ourselves, to run away from our embodied experience at a time when it needed our attention more than ever. There is another way. It is the way of kindness, the way of slowness, the way of true self-acceptance. It is the way of staying close to yourself as you walk the path or get lost. Instead of running away from the present moment, can we slow down and begin to face our pain, our discomfort, our fear with courage and curiosity? Can we give ourselves permission to be beginners again, wide-eyed children, fascinated with our immediate embodied experience, wondering about our pain and discomfort, rather than immediately distracting ourselves and disconnecting? As Krishnamurti taught, when we turn away from our pain, suffering begins. We split ourselves in two. One part of us is over here in pain. Another part of us wants to be over there out of pain. That is the real pain of life. Dividing yourself like that, half in, half out, fragmenting yourself, rejecting where you are, and longing to be where you are not and cannot be right now. If we keep one foot in the present and another in the future, we lose our balance. We need both feet on the ground. Seen through loving eyes, every moment is an invitation to let go of the image of how life should be. to let go of the hope that the moment is going to be any different and embrace the moment as it actually is. We bow to it and honor its texture, taste, shape, even if it's bitter. To accept means to take what is given, to receive what life offers. It's not about being passive. It's about aligning with the universe, cooperating with what it gives us in the present. We have to begin with raw materials, the canvas of now. Sometimes what's given is our own inability to embrace the moment. So let's begin there. Let's begin by saying yes to our non-acceptance of the way things are right now, surrendering fully to our inability to surrender. Let's come into alignment with how life is actually moving in us. Let's tell the truth about our experience. This is not masochism, nor giving up the possibility of change, but rather a cooperation with given energies, no longer being a victim of the moment, but a willing explorer. In my experience, when you finally say yes to the way things actually are, yes to the waves moving in you, yes to your fear, yes to your sorrow, yes to your doubts, yes to all of the thoughts buzzing in your head, great change then becomes possible. You are clean again. You are whole. Something new can now emerge out of the fertile ground, nurtured with your loving attention, your presence. Sometimes you have to stop pushing for change and allow yourself to be pulled into the mystery of the moments for real change to begin. True healing is not a destination, not about ridding yourself of pain, fear, sorrow, and all of that, not about becoming perfect or immune or untouchable, but has something to do with saying yes to the present moment, the only moment we are ever truly in connection with, and affirming it, even if it is uncomfortable right now. Sometimes there is great intelligence in allowing yourself to actually feel worse right now, rather than scrambling to immediately feel better. To be curious about your symptoms rather than immediately rushing to get rid of them, remove them, numb them, for your symptoms may just be parts of you longing for you. Feeling worse, but consciously so, bringing your precious attention, your most valuable resource, out of the past and future and coming back to the living moment. Paying attention to the breath, body, sounds, and sensations of this moment. Feeling the belly rise and fall with each in and out breath. Noticing what it's like to be alive here on this day. Feeling the warmth of the sunlight on your face, hearing the sounds of the birds in the cars, seeing all of the colors and shapes, delighting in the movement all around you, sensing all the energies moving in your body. This is true meditation. Not seeking some altered state or trying to reach some goal, but simply being awake to this precious moment, trusting the way of life, being here now. Hi, friends. If you have been enjoying Spaces Between, please take a moment to subscribe, and leaving a review is the cherry on top. Thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you next week.